Welcome to the August 12th, 2025 special session, which is our 17th voting session and work session of the Mayor and City Council. The meeting is now called to order. I would like to ask for a motion to go into special session.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in special session. I have two required motions. First, resolution approval of the city FY 2026 to 2030 five-year consolidated plan and city FY 2026 CDBG and home annual action plan.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the adoption of a resolution approving the City FY 2026-2030 five-year consolidated plan and City FY 2026 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Program, authorizing the mayor to file an application for financial assistance within the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $791,400 and $361,181.17, respectfully, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all other documents relating to the city's CDBG and home programs for HUD program year 2025, City FY 2026. This motion also authorizes staff to amend the approved program budget as necessary to reflect final funding allocations.
I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up, approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of a financial incentive agreement between the City of Hagerstown and Motherland Kitchen LLC located at 5557 South Potomac.
Mr. Mayor, we move for Mayor and City Council approval, a resolution authorizing the execution of the attached financial incentive agreement between the City of Hagerstown and Motherland Kitchen LLC located at 55 to 57 South Potomac. The financial incentive agreement supersedes and renders null and void a prior Main Street Startup Subrecipient Grant Agreement entered into by the parties and pertaining to the same subject matter. The financial incentive agreement provides a grant up to $34,329 to be paid from the Economic Incentives line item in the Economic Redevelopment Fund and with a project completion deadline of October 15th, 2025. Staff are authorized to make administrative edits to the financial incentive agreement with approval of the city administrator as necessary prior to execution.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we are now done adjourning special session. We are now moving on to work session. All right, first up, Save Locomotive 202, Karen Dunn Swafford and Jim McGarity.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having us today. The first document that you have in your little packet here is just information that you guys already know. I'm not going to go over it. We can reference it as needed if you guys have questions. I hope that today we can make this more of a discussion type time frame where you guys can ask us questions, we can rebuttal, and then we can sort of go from there. What we're looking for today, straight out, is we're looking for a commitment from the city to keep Locomotive 202 in Hagerstown, whether that's for a certain time frame or forever. We're looking for a commitment. We're looking to build a preservation plan for Locomotive 202 with you guys to keep continued maintenance, as well as throughout, as well as for a restoration process. When the original bid was bid out, it was bid out as a pavilion rebuild and a locomotive restoration. It was not bid out as two separate projects. So therefore, what we are asking is we rebid out the locomotive restoration as its own project and exclude the pavilion rebuild at this time. Either the Public Works Department and Parks and Recreation can bid that out, or the Hub City chapter is also here as an asset for you guys to partner with you to get these restoration bids. I have actually already reached out to restoration companies. They have open work orders from the 2023 bid, which were bid back out to general contractors as opposed to the city. They are stating that it's about a $275,000 restoration cost for the restoration of locomotive 202 cosmetically, which I think is something that the city can handle. I think it's something that we can handle fundraising for the city as well.
Pensions are high on this one. I've never seen anything like this before. 44 years in business. I can't believe you talk to somebody and say, hey, will you sign their cards? I don't want to get involved in that. You know, I might get fired, or I just don't want to get involved. I don't want to butt heads with anybody. At any rate, I hope whatever decision you all make, the other group helps keep the 202 in good standing, working, relationship. The phone party today, Lou Scally, he had a whole hour of people calling in to save the 202. That was really heartening, just to hear that many people. Most of them are older, but their grandpa worked the railroad, their dad worked for the railroad, But yeah, our purpose is preservation and restoration of the 202, whether the city maintains ownership and we help however we can, or some other partnership or whatever you guys need. We're asking kind of like your input. What do you want? And then maybe we can come back with some other things. The history, 73, up till 73, the Western Maryland Railroad maintained it. Mr. Long restored it in 83 and again in 2003. And in 2019, another project was worked on until all of a sudden, it came in way too high because nobody wanted to bid it. So Callis billed $3 million just to put in a bid. And the responsibilities, once we get down to what do you want, then we get into responsibilities. If we buy it for $1, we take over ownership like Mr. Long did. We're getting all kinds of different things out of the council, so we just let us know and maybe we can adapt to those. We can lead the fundraising, which we always talk to some people and they're willing to put in the bids. Now,
We
the
have.
bids, yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we have already started talking fundraising with sponsors. Sponsors have kind of cowered back because of the city's stance on the locomotive. And that's where we're finding a lot of hard relationships right now, is because we don't have the city's backing or the city's blessing in this. And that's what we're looking for tonight.
Yes, we can't get, most of the people with the bids, they said we need it in writing from the city that we can come in and actually look at. I mean, anybody can stand there and take a picture and say, that's going to cost you this much, but they want to look in
Right.
the engine, the guts of it.
So the other things that we have, we do have an accomplishment sheet. This is just information that we have accomplished. I want to point out, I did have our previous presentation pulled as well, because I want you guys to realize everything that we pointed out that we would accomplish as an organization, we have accomplished. We've founded a nonprofit organization for railroad heritage. We've completed on-site projects with Locomotive 202 and the City Park Train Hub and the Parks and Recreation Department. We have a good relationship with them. We have a great relationship with the Boys and Girls Club of Washington County. We brought 130 students through the locomotive and the Roundhouse Museum just this summer. We are making a difference with railroad heritage in Hagerstown, and we want to make a difference by keeping Locomotive 202 here.
Yes, we want to preserve our history. And the environmental deterioration of the thing is just falling apart. When my wife Terry worked down there in 17, 18, 19, she was disgusted how it's kind of deteriorated. And it wouldn't take a whole lot, like a $274,000 to make that thing look pretty again. It'd be the gem of the city, like you all advertise,
Right. And the rest of the informational packet is just, we have an email explaining how Lou Scally is behind behind our efforts from the very beginning. He was behind keeping the locomotive. We have information on us giving back the awarded money. And that was something that the money was awarded back in 2019. They got an upgraded amount in 2023 and then gave back the money subsequently in 2024 for this project, which I do want to point out, March 28th of 2023, the city council and mayor voted to go forward with the restoration of locomotive 202. So we do hope that you continue with that vote. And then I just have some nostalgic, newspaper articles. And then we do have a prepared memorandum of understanding if you guys would be interested in passing that along to your city and the city administrator and city attorney to review if you would want to go into some kind of memorandum of understanding with us for restoration quotes specifically at this point. If you want to go further in depth with the relationship with the Hub City chapter, we would definitely be open to that conversation as well.
Once again, the educational thing. I wasn't never involved much with like the boys clubs and all that, but once Karen hooked us up, they were down at the museum the other day, and it was fun just watching those little kids, 8, 12-year-old kids, wherever they were. They had a blast. I mean, just, kids, they want to touchy-feely, but, all in all, I think they had a blast. And then we had them down there for other events like the Santa Claus thing. For the educational aspect, we're working with the Washington County school system now to maybe have a project with them as far as just coming over and tour it. And tourism, Cumberland, we understand, has 85,000 people coming in and riding those trains, which is, they've done a phenomenal job marketing their city. The only time I've ever been in Cumberland was to ride the train. Otherwise, there's no reason to go there. And we want to make it something for like somebody to come here to see our train, which according to a lot of people stop in, of course, since it's only open 2 days a week for 8 hours total, I think it is. So it's kind of hard for people to go in and look at it. Someday, maybe something could be changed, whether we can help with more hours.
And those are all things that we can work towards, but we have to commit to keeping the locomotive at this point.
We're stalled because we can't get the quotes. And
Right,
we
we're
all
stalled
actually
at
have
everything
them.
that we can do with the locomotive at this point. And really, it's commitment from you guys to keep the locomotive, whether you decide to go forward with the restoration or we help with that restoration. That's the commitment we look forward.
Yeah, and then telling us whether you want us to buy it for $1 or you want us to assist you in any way we can through, just whatever you want. Just, we're kind of like at a standstill. We don't want to buy it, move it or anything. We want to keep it there. We can get it running there. There's no reason it can't run sitting there. To get rail space anymore, it's really hard around this area.
Yep. Okay, so do you guys have any questions for us? Is there anything that we are missing that you guys need a seed for?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
If we were to commit to having locomotives stay put here in the city of Hagerstown, right? What are some commitments that you can provide to the public that you guys would take on?
Well, there is a multitude of things that we can provide. We can provide hands-on maintenance projects to the locomotive right off the bat. We've talked to restoration experts, and they said we could get out there and start working on the rods on the locomotive right away. That's something that we can do to get it just looking nice while we're waiting for the restoration. So hands-on projects like that. Fundraising projects. We already have sponsors that we've reached out to. I mean, big sponsors, and they're like, we cannot commit to you because the city is not committing to you. We can also bring more educational tours on site with the Washington County Public School Systems. We already do have the Boys and Girls Club coming through. We're working with the Easter Seals. We're bringing in senior groups as well. Already, these are things that we're accomplishing within the Locomotive 202 area, and we just look to expand upon those things as well.
Now, another thing, we talked to a lot of business people around town. They said, well, if you're going to put in for donations or for help, they only do it once a year. So if somebody says, we got 30 days, well, we can't do something in 30 days. We need at least a year, if not a little bit more, to apply for them. get the quotes in. The quote's going to take 60, 90 days. Although I think you all or somebody's got the quotes you had done in 2023, which we couldn't find them anywhere.
Because the city doesn't have those because it went to the general contractor. So the general contractors got the bids for the locomotive, and then the general contractors turned around and then bid to the city. So you wouldn't have that information from the city. You would have it from the general contractor, which I don't know if they would actually divulge that information to us or not. That's not a route I have taken.
Just the relationship you want. You want us to buy for $1 and we take over everything, or you want to maintain ownership, then we can help in any way, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maintenance of it, caretakers of it, historians.
But yes, as soon as you guys keep it, we can delve into a plan. Like I said, we're ready to get our hands on it, just to do some upkeep right now, get some of the boiler cover that's on it that's peeling. Just make it look a little nicer as it is. And we would do that no matter what. If you gave us the chance to get in there, we would do that no matter what the outcome of the locomotive is. We want to get in there and help preserve it now, sooner than later.
Say it were to stay here, through fundraising efforts, after the bid process is done, what kind of timeline you looking at to be able to restore it?
Oh, I would say,
I mean, like, I'm not holding you to anything, but not like a rough ballpark.
within weeks, months, within a couple of months time frame, it would actually be able to be restored. The
No, I mean,
actual
I'm talking about fully restored.
fully restored, the time frame doesn't take that long to actually do the restoration process. I was talking, it may be like a season's time frame.
Yeah. according to your
It's
bid.
not like it takes years and years, as long as the production is smooth running and you get the people in there to remove the paint, you get the people in there to do the paint, you get the people in there to do the lettering. The lettering is really going to be the longest part of the process, because they have to get in and actually do all of the measurements and make sure the lettering's perfect. And that's the ringer really for it. It's, when you break it down, it's a pretty simple process. We're repainting a train here. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
And in your bid, I think they said it started in the spring, they would be done by the fall in the bid process. We're saying probably a year and a half, just, you go.
Yeah,
Permits.
yeah.
then-
I would say comfortably, I would say 5 years maximum on a restore.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what kind of what I was asking.
That's,
because you-
yeah, that's what I would say. But as far as the actual restoration process, it doesn't take that
Yeah, I'm
long.
not, I'm
But yeah, I
talking about from
mean,
your
from
fundraising
fundraising
efforts, so
points, yeah, I would say
Okay.
5 year maximum.
Okay,
I, in my head, envision much sooner than that, but that's my action portion of my part.
I have a question for, as far as the fundraising efforts.
Yes.
How is that achievable when you don't own the train?
So that's where a letter of consent from the city comes in to play, for us to be able to be a steward or conservator of the locomotive. So really, all we need is a letter that says the Hub City chapter has authorization through the city in order to get either restoration quotes or to get fundraising efforts. That's all we need from you guys.
Last time you did it, you raised $633,000.
Yeah, and
All you
one
needed was
grant, right?
274 and you would have been done. The canopy would have been done, the train would have been painted. And then we'd probably be sitting here asking, can we help maintain the train? So the funds are available. Yes, we've had a lot of business leaders in the area say, well, we'll just wait for the outcome before any commitment or whatever.
But we have interest. We have interest. We have been meeting with everyone tirelessly. Please trust us in our efforts.
But you've raised money without that letter.
We
correct?
have, yeah, we've raised about $7,000 just
So
for our operational
7,000, that's
costs.
what you
Just for our,
currently have?
yeah, that's not what we have in the bank. That's what we've gotten and used throughout our operations. But that's just like people donating to us just to, keep going and making sure that we can make the flyers, and we're having a raffle and we get T-shirts, and we're, we,
So you're
we
saying
are
the letter of intent gives you
Yes.
more of a,
yes, that means I can go to,
Capital project.
yeah, I can go for capital investment projects. Whereas otherwise, when you're just trying to get operational costs for a nonprofit, people aren't just like, oh yeah, I'm going to give you money necessarily. They want to see that you're working towards something. So if we're working towards a capital investment project, they're more willing to give us operational costs because we're working towards a project. Whereas, you know, doing the Boys and Girls Club and everything is great, but that's more of like a grant type thing, and grants only come out, you know, September, January. So we're sort of waiting for the grant process. There's a lot behind the scenes going on with, with what we're doing, but we are, you know, we're working tirelessly, and we just want to see the locomotive stay, and we're here to help you guys however you guys need help, and we're ready. We're chomping at the bit to get ready. We've been meeting with these business people. We've been calling to restoration companies. We've been doing everything that we can.
You guys have
But-
work orders already on them.
Right,
So you don't even
right.
have
That's
to bid it out.
essentially
You can just call up and
is
say,
you guys have the power just to be like, hey, FMW Solutions, what was that bid on our locomotive in Hagerstown? I can't do that.
I have
You
another
know.
question for you
Yes,
guys.
ma'am.
And this might be a silly question, but as far as the restoration, right? We do know that this is extremely costly. The end goal here, we're trying to preserve a gift that was gifted to the city of Hagerstown, right? For the kids.
Yes.
And I'm for that 100%. Is there in any way that in raising that money to restore the train, we're not trying to restore necessarily to have the train fully on and running, because that, again, that's very costly, but more of like a preservation piece. It's kind of like a outside piece out, like at a museum.
Correct.
So that it's
Yes.
here forever and all generations can see.
Yes.
Is that more the end goal that you guys are looking for?
That is-
I'm just curious.
That is my end goal.
Okay.
That is my end goal, is to have the locomotive there forever as a piece, as an artifact for generations to come.
Okay, so we're not looking to have it fully running up and
No.
going that direction, right?
No,
gotta
no.
have track.
You gotta have track. You gotta have track, and
Right.
there's no track in Hagerstown.
It's all about something from Winchester.
There's,
a small
yeah,
train
there's,
that
so
comes from Winchester.
that's where,
We could
but
run it,
yeah.
But
All right,
we can't
Yeah.
do
council,
that.
anything else, council?
No, she kind of, Councilmember Anderson kind of asked, so it's just a cosmetic piece.
Cosmetic, yes,
275 is
yeah,
cosmetic.
yes.
And another thing is,
And
scrap value is $20,000. I asked somebody, if somebody wanted to buy it, what would they say, anywhere from
well,
25?
it's valued at 725,000 to 1.25 million, but that's just what it's, the investment price of it would be.
So is what you're asking this evening for the mayor and council to reverse course on our ongoing agreements, discussion with Western Maryland Scenic Railroad?
It would take you back off course of that, but it would put you back on course to the 2018 start date of this, when Rodney Tissue was part of the Public Works Department, and he started this project asking for locomotive 202 to be restored. 2023, in March, on the 28th, it was voted on that restoration, refurbishment, and restoration of 202 would be started. And then we're here.
Yeah, everybody did.
Well, I guess that's my concern, because, and I'm just gonna be honest,
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I don't have
Wanna
any
hear.
greater faith that you'll meet the 5-year mark of raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for restoration than I do that Western Maryland Scenic Railroad will move it up there and have it up and on tracks in 10 years. And so I guess I'm just sitting here as a single elected official trying to decipher in my mind whether it goes there and sits with that possibility, or it stays here and sits with this possibility. And I don't know which one of those, is more apt to bear fruit in a more timely manner. Because at the end of the day, I'm not supportive of it sitting at that location in City Park indefinitely, in the condition that it's in.
So there's two things to this. Western Maryland Railway has been around for over 30 years doing what they do. So if you can't have faith in them to restore the locomotive, at least give a little faith in us who just started in February and are just out of the gate and have actually really provided the community with some substance when it comes to railroad heritage.
Oh, I
And
think
give
that
us
you
a
both have
chance.
energy. Neither of you have money,
Well, but.
and I'm trying to
you-
figure out,
You see
what
where we're
that course
chasing our
is.
tail though without any city support though.
There's two
is
ways to
where
go.
we are.
The city maintains ownership, and you guys are a lot better at raising money than we are.
Yeah, you can take over the whole project. We just
already
ask
had
that
it.
it stays and that it gets done.
You were that close to getting it done. It's just somehow $300,000 just scared everybody, and you couldn't get anybody to bid it. That's what it amounts to. That's the second bid. It sounds like they finally did reach out to some people that actually work on locomotives, but then it just like it went away. We don't know what happened in that. Or you say, we'll go ahead and sell it to you for $1. We'll give you 2 to 5 years and see what you can do. I mean, it's been sitting there since 1953, 70 years, 72 years, so it's there for another 2 years. What's going to happen? It's a lot of thick steel there.
And I am willing to get my overalls on tomorrow and go out there and start working on it to help maintain it. I mean, that's something that if you keep it here, you do have a community that's ready to step up and start doing things to it right now. We don't even need the restoration companies to come in, and we can do some things to restore and start to maintain it.
Okay. Council, anything else?
I just want to preface that, one of the reasons why you're here today is because I did hear the advocacy on why hasn't mayor and council offered for us to come back to present. And I strongly encourage the mayor to get you guys on the agenda because I want it to be fair for the public to know what you guys have been doing, not just with the regular sessions with the 3-minute time that you have, but to present all the facts. Again, so everybody can hear in a setting like this. I would remind the body though that the last administration did move forward with Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, and this body has also entertained that same concept with moving the train to Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, to the point that you guys are all aware that there's a draft contract in place that you guys have reviewed. Now, I would caution the body though, that we do need to make a decision soon on which route to take because we have Western Maryland with this draft proposal and legal going over these documents. And then we also have your guys' proposal. And we get emails daily about keeping 202 and transferring it. So it's not just coming from one side of the aisle. And I appreciate the advocacy and the support that you guys get. But understand that we do know this is a very difficult decision, but I can tell you today that I am still in agreement to move the train to Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. That's just me, but we're a body and it takes 3 to make things move. Now, if decision comes back to mayor and council on what to do next, I will vote accordingly. But I just want to make that clear that we are still entertaining Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. There has not been a vote to not continue those conversations. There has not been a vote to have a commitment here. We need to make that formal.
What the process would be Western Maryland contract is on the agenda for next week to discuss the changes that were proposed, to see where that contract is. The vote would be an up or down as to whether to accept that contract in regular session. If you say accept the contract, Western Maryland, then we go into work with them. If you say no, then you come back at a future date and discuss the options that are left. this being one of them.
Okay.
And I would just say on behalf of staff, very factual document right here. I will say that. Somewhat missing context when it comes to the amount of $600,000, but certainly more factual than some of the conspiracy theories that have been out there on social media. Because I know my staff has worked extremely hard to make this as transparent as it could have been. I have been transparent to the utmost, and some of those comments that were made on Facebook were not appropriate.
It's crazy.
So I appreciate this document, even though when it comes to the grant, not quite in the context as what you said, but we'll leave that go. But that's how the process would work. Councilman.
Thank you. And, you know, I get tagged a lot on social media for this proposal, but just to be clear, again, for transparency, if the contract is, because I know we went back and asked them to make some changes to the contract. And if it's okay with me, at the time we see the contract again, I will vote to move the train, just so everyone's aware. But I also appreciate how you guys get together and support your cause. I'm for all that, I really am.
And we want, no matter the outcome of Locomotive 202, we want a partnership with the city for railroad heritage. We want
Yeah.
to do other big things. So don't put us to the side and put us to the back burner and forget about
Yeah.
us altogether.
And that's what I would want to
That's
continue
what I
until
would
that,
hope.
until if that is the decision from the body to move it during that time, I'm still very much supportive of the educational piece that you guys have done with working with the Boys and Girls Club and partnering with our local schools to educate about the trains.
Absolutely. And we thank you for your time tonight. We hope that it stays. We love it. We hope that future generations can enjoy it as well.
All right, we appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next up, the Washington County Historical Society overview, Mr. Andrew Stout.
Oh, okay, thanks. Been living a quiet, boring life, I guess. I don't know about a bunch of social media drama about stuff, so good for the Historical Society, I guess.
Yeah, don't do social media drama. Highly do not recommend.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So, just an informational session this evening, but in a way, mayor and council get to decide the future of the Historical Society to some degree. I have a little presentation I'm going to do here. This is the mission statement of the Historical Society. Very simple: to preserve and promote the history of Washington County, Maryland. That's all people's history, all of the history. We try to be reflective of all of our community. It started in 1911, and it really helped shape Washington County as we know it. Without the Historical Society, we would not have Washington Monument State Park. We would not have Burnside Bridge and pieces of Antietam Battlefield. We would not have the Haggard House. We would not have the Miller House. We would probably not have Fort Frederick if it were not for the Washington County Historical Society. It is currently no longer involved in those real estate acquisitions. It is a nonprofit organization with 350 members, runs the Miller House Museum at 135 West Washington Street with 20,000 plus documents and artifacts, and runs the Kinship Family Heritage Research Center for genealogical research, which draws people from all over the United States, believe it or not. Miller House, it was the home of Peter Bell of the Bell family potters in the 1800s. Federal style townhouse built by William Price. It was donated to the Historical Society in 1966 when it opened as the Miller House Museum. The Kinship, again, as I mentioned, the Kinship Family Heritage Center, that's one of our big draws. We have sold out programming. The second Friday of every month is our lecture series, Culture and Cocktails. This past Friday was the Halfway African American Cemetery presentation. Since coming on 2 years ago, we've changed everything at the Historical Society. We've cut all our costs. We eliminated all of the part-time staff. We've tried to max out everything we can. We've developed this Heritage Bus Tour program in the county, which now features 6 different bus tours. We started this curating community initiative last year to connect with the community better. We have some VISTA students there visiting the Miller House. We started an Adopt an Artifact program where people can donate to have items in the collection restored. We did this wonderful 160th anniversary of the Ransom of Hagerstown event last year, and the mayor had a nice declaration that she gave. And in addition to that, I mean, the city of Hagerstown funds the Historical Society for $5,000 a year. And for the $5,000, the city gets continuing promotion and preservation of the history of the city, operation of the Miller House Museum with 2 full-time professional staff, taking care of the 20,000 plus items. We provide items on display at the Washington County Rural Heritage Museum, and the items at the Hager House are on loan from the Washington County Historical Society. You have continued operation at the Kinship Family Heritage Research Center. You have sold out lectures every month. You have 5 new bus tours throughout the county. You have the first new museum exhibits at the Miller House in years. Observance of the Ransom, free public history day that's open to everyone with no cost, walking tours of Hagerstown, active social media posts to engage Washington County residents and visitors, a paid internship program for Washington County Community College and 4-year degree students funded by the Rural Maryland Council. The interns are finishing their last week. Awesome success. We got the brightest, best young people that were interested in history, and one of them already went off to an internship with the National Park Service at the C&O Canal. So we offered 5 internships for that first year. We've grown the membership to 350. We have a current membership goal of 760 people, which would be 0.05% of the county population. We've done facilities improvements to the Miller House, installed HVAC and roof repairs. We pursued an independent evaluation of the facilities and the collections through the American Alliance of Museums Collections Assessment Program, which looked at all the facilities, all the objects in the house. And as I said, we've recently taken cost-cutting measures and tried to cut down overhead as much as we can. What the evaluation came back with was that we're maxed out, that we need to figure out what we want to do and then do that. And that could be anything. As you saw, our mission statement is simply to preserve and promote the history of Washington County, Maryland. That does not require running the Miller House Museum. It does not require running the Kinship Family Heritage Center. It does not require having 20,000 objects, right? We don't have to do any of that, but we do all of it because, you know, we're here in Hagerstown. We want to do all that we can for everyone. So here we are at the Miller House Museum Curatorial Facility Phase 1, and essentially what I want to do is take the broken down 2-car garage out back and turn it into a state-of-the-art curatorial facility that will itself be an attraction. And this is located in Library Alley, right in the back of Miller House. It's circled in this image in red. Here is the current garage. It is quite full. There's Hagerstown's first printing press and all of its printing block. And I want to turn that into something like this, a brand new facility. It'll be 2 stories. You'll be able to go in. The curator will herself be an artifact that you can go in there and view doing her work, right? So make the curatorial work part of the display, sort of. And this will help the county historical society because we don't have enough room for everything as it is. So we need the facility, and we could bring it to downtown Hagerstown, turn a somewhat blighted 2-car garage into something awesome. And so the first part of it is $32,400 was phase 1, and that's to obtain the architectural design plans. And then phase 2, we estimate to be $650,000 to $1 million project. We've already received, of the $32,400, I come here to you today having $22,500 in pocket, okay? So I need $9,900 to make phase 1 happen, and I can do that as soon as I get it. I could do it tomorrow if I got it. The initial $20,000 is from the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, which is the best possible partner. You could ask for this state partner. Highly likely that they will be around for phase 2 of this if we go. And also we have America's 250th coming up in 2026. So there's lots of resources available for projects like this. So I think it's a great time to do that. And that's it in a nutshell.
Question. Sorry. So for phase 2, are there any grants that you guys are planning on securing for that 606? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go
650
after
million.
the same funding we went after for the phase 1, and in addition, Maryland Historic Trust Capital Grant Program. I mean, I brought in, so first year here, FY '24, I brought in $80,000 in grant funding for just general operating and a few special projects. The majority of that came from outside of Washington County, like 50,000 came from outside the county. So we have a good thing going with our grant writing, and we're gonna hopefully keep that going. We get this project moving.
It's good to know. Thank you.
And it's something, you know, they're looking for capital projects for the 250, and they're looking for things like this to put money into. It's sort of a win-win for everybody in that we get to take better care of our historic artifacts and documents. We get a place that interns and others will be able to get more hands-on work experience doing archival and curation work. And it'll be a place to visit also, in addition to the Miller House itself.
This would be a good project to go to the community coalition with for bond bill. It lands just about right in the wheelhouse of what we've heard. The legislature will probably look at bonding. Anything above $1 million is going to be very difficult to get bonding for in this legislative session, but this kind of falls in there.
And I will say that last year was the least due to a number of reasons, but I came on board and there was a gap in leadership at the Historical Society, but we only received $5,000 total from Washington County last year. And so we went to them and said, we can't continue like this. And so this year they're giving us $25,000. I know that Frederick funds the County Historical Society there for $10,000 annually. And so, you know, if there's a way that we could get up to those funding levels, that would be
I have a question.
Yep.
So I'm familiar with the property. In fact, I was there just a month or so ago. Is it your intent to take that structure down and
No.
build something new?
It's concrete block, so we're just gonna use that.
And so, I think for me, when I go there, it's sort of just back in an area where it isn't like really accessible.
Right, now you would have to come to the museum if you want to go
Right,
there.
yeah, I mean.
Or unless you pull in the back.
So I'm just trying to envision in my mind, like that's a pretty big investment and expense into a significant addition to the museum that sort of puts it back in an area that, you know, isn't easily accessible
I know.
by most people. And so, hear me out,
Yeah.
because, and this may be way off the wall, right? Which isn't unusual at times, but, you know, I've heard implications over a number of years that the Discovery Station is looking for other space, right? And so I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking of the number like, $650,000 to $1 million is a big number. And I just look at a building, you know, that's 3 addresses down that has absolutely great street visibility. And I just think, well,
You should buy it for me.
what I'm trying to say is we're trying to go to this exercise of putting $1 million building in an alley. You know what I mean? And I
That's the
look
only
at,
other building I got.
I know, but I look at the display capability of the artifacts that you have, and they don't belong in a building in an alley. That's, I'm just going to be honest.
Oh, no,
They
there's no
belong,
displays in the museum.
they belong in a building like the bank on the corner of a magnitude that
I'm with
is comparable
Yeah.
to when you go out to the Ag Museum out at the Ag Center and you see, you know, the accessions and displays and you know, and the reflection
Yep.
of that ag. So, and I'm going to go a little further. when we first started the cultural trail, I lost out on this argument, but I made it. One of the things that I wanted to do is I had a gentleman who was a neighbor, he's 93 and he passed away, but he knew everything about every building downtown, of every manufacturer, this building, manufactured this, et cetera, and all of that's lost. And my goal as part of the trail, that cultural trail, was to place reflections of those objects along that trail, you know what I mean? Because we don't have an awareness of exactly how manufacturing oriented our urban center was. And all these buildings, and why, and again, use the comparison, oftentimes, if you look at the buildings in downtown Frederick, they'll tell you the reason that they're more readily able to be converted is because those buildings typically aren't as large on average as the buildings we have in this downtown, because this downtown was more manufacturing oriented. That's a big difference. But we don't, if any display anywhere of the things we manufactured, and I know I talked to Sean Guy about this a number of times, he's got, his artifacts, and, he's been talking forever about a Hagerstown Museum, and I just look at this and go, man, I don't think that $1 million for building an alley is the
It's
best
a
course.
curatorial workspace and storage center.
I think that type of thing is great,
Yeah?
Yeah,
but
there's room for that there.
for that type of money, if I had my opportunity to get my hands near the Miller House to put all of the good stuff the Miller has in a very displayable building, it's that building across from
I
the
got a
county
bladed
courthouse.
building right next door I can.
So I just,
But I can't buy that one either. I mean, here's the situation, we gotta do something.
I
right?
agree.
Okay?
I
So,
agree. We're on the same page.
yep, so I gotta do something, and so I got 22.5 in my pocket.
Right.
To do something.
Right.
And,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
wanna-
try to do something.
I don't want it to be limited to just what we have and just the property you have.
Okay,
If we're going to talk about the idea,
okay.
I'd rather talk about it on a much more visible scale.
No, I appreciate that,
That's
but
just my
understand that in the time that it takes to talk about stuff,
Oh, yeah.
we might just decide to go,
Yeah.
right? Because if I can't get any love from the city for it, why be here? At the end of the day, right? What's the benefit to the historical society? We can go out and be in the county.
Yeah.
We don't have to be here. So,
That's why I think I'd like to find a place that is much more suitable within your direct vicinity. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Of
Would
being
you know
able-
any of those bladed property owners next door? I mean, we've been there. We're the anchor to that block, folks, right?
Yeah.
So it's, show us something.
I'm looking behind you.
Yeah, that's okay. But so this is happening. I'm happy to look at any other buildings if you got some buildings, but I tried the neighbors next door.
See this lady right back here?
Yeah.
Yes.
She's gonna love to have a conversation with you.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's all I got for you then.
I mean, I think that this is comparable to when the museum over at City Park brought the idea forward of grabbing the empty building right next to them for the art, program that they'd like to go there. And it's taking some time, but they are building that momentum, and, it isn't going to happen overnight, but I think it's a much better, larger idea to accomplish. And I agree, you need the governmental bodies at the table with the funding to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we own that building? The schedule station?
Next up, Urban Tree Grant Program through the Chesapeake Bay Trust, Mr. Jim Bender.
Good afternoon. For the past probably 25 years, the city has regularly applied for grants through either the Department of Natural Resources or through the Chesapeake Bay Trust to do tree planting here in the city. And for the last 3 or 4 years, they've had a program that's related to their initiative to plant 5 million trees in Maryland by 2031. And so for the last 2 years, we've applied for grants through the Chesapeake Bay Trust and have been successful in getting awards from them to get funds to do additional tree planting. So earlier this spring, they opened the grant program back up again for new applications. We applied again for a grant, and we've been notified that we have been awarded a $50,000 grant from the Chesapeake Bay Trust to do tree planting here in the city. In our proposal, we said we would match that with, I believe, $27,000 of local funds, which we had budgeted out of the stormwater fund for the city, so that money was already accounted for. So really, what I'm here for tonight is just to say that we've been notified that we've received this award, and I guess to get the council's feeling on whether or not we want to accept it. If we do want to accept the award, we'll bring that back at the regular session meeting at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yes, for me.
Nice.
Big thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Let's get it.
Next up, wastewater deduct meters, South Hagerstown High School, Nancy Hofrat.
Clean air.
Good evening. I'm here again on a deduct meter. The Board of Education reached out specifically for South Hagerstown High School to ask for consideration for wastewater deduct meter. In this case, they would be irrigation meters. Completely different operation, but similar to what we did with District Cannabis, where they're watering a product. So I met with them on site. I wanted to better understand their irrigation system and whether or not this could or couldn't be easily implemented. So they do have two irrigation systems. One of them is for the main field, football and rugby, I believe, and the other one is the baseball field. The meter, they have two meters that serve the property. The meter that serves the irrigation system for the baseball field does have some bathrooms associated with it. However, the irrigation meter, deduct meter, could be installed directly on the irrigation line. The same is true of their second meter. A meter can be installed directly on the irrigation line, which would allow us then to deduct that flow from the total bill. Just some numbers. South Hagerstown, their average annual usage for 2024 was, the average Board of Education numbers, because I think these are important to know. The Board of Education has purchased 131,000 gallons of allocation in our system. And in 2024, they only used 67,000 gallons. So they have a balance of about 64,000 gallons. That's important for me because, for example, the new school, we did not require they purchase additional allocation in trying to manage this. So real important for the Board of Education to know those numbers. For South Hagerstown High School, during October through April, they use about 7,400 gallons a day. That's their base usage. And during the watering season, May through September, they use about 15,700 gallons per day. So about 8,200 gallons a day go into irrigation during the watering months, or 53%. So for the Board of Education for South Hagerstown High School, this is a very meaningful number for them. And the meters that they would install would be census meters with census radio transceiver units, which means that when we're reading meters, we do drive-by reading. We have the ability to pick them up as we drive past the school, and that data is uploaded directly into the system. So very efficient from a billing standpoint. Doesn't create a lot of extra. Doesn't create any really extra work for the city. And they are bill accurate meters. And if they would need to be calibrated, they can very easily be calibrated if there's some question about the usage being off. So I think with that, I'll ask if anybody has any questions regarding the approval of the irrigation meters for South Hagerstown High for the Board of Education.
So I want to make sure I'm clear. If we agree to this, then then there's a portion that'll be deducted, so it's just charged for water, right?
Correct.
And then that water will be charged at the rate that we currently charge non-residential rate customers.
Correct.
And we are currently reviewing that rate for potential changes.
We are.
Okay. So as we get more of these, I think that as part of that rate analysis, it is important for us to say, because water is a finite resource, and it's one thing to say that there's a deduct for a business that uses that as part of their business operations. I think it's another to say that is a residential or non-residential customer that would get that concession in a way that is not as necessary and more unfettered.
Understand.
Meaning, you know what I mean?
It's irrigation.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, to that point where you could say, this field has to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, in the
And this isn't
industry.
the only field out there, you know what I mean? And I just, as you reach that finite limitation, and especially as it applies to maintaining adequate pressure on the system, especially for entities that run it for long periods at a time, there should be some cost differential associated with that.
We'll be bringing draft models, multiple models back to the mayor and council. In fact, we talked about it yesterday in the directors meeting. We're planning on doing that in October. The direction that we provided, the consultant included the things that we talked about, which were irrigation meters, water-only meters, and what the rate should be for those versus a meter that's billed both water and sewer. So we did build that is being built into the analysis of what that should be. Typically irrigation water, I'm sure you're aware, in the water industry is considered luxury use.
Right.
And so
There
that
should be a
is,
cost component associated with that luxury level use. That it shouldn't be, we'll go out and turn it on, or it doesn't matter because we're giving the water away for practically pennies anyway, and somebody say, I'll let it run for 8 instead of 4 hours, because there is that cognizance, of what the bill is.
and when we adopt water and sewer rates, even with this being approved, even if this is approved, when the rates change, it impacts all customers the same, whether it's a water-only customer, a water sewer customer, or a deduct meter, that it's whatever rates are in effect at that particular time or what applies. So if we adopt a new rate structure that includes a rate for irrigation meters, that rate would then go into effect for this usage.
And I also think that there is an effort being made at South High to raise funds to turf school stadiums. So that may eventually get them in here and talk about that effort, but that would remove one of those irrigation needs. They can get that field turfed.
Yes.
Because I think it's the only remaining grass athletic field in the county.
It is.
No, Clear Spring.
Yeah,
Clear Spring and Hancock.
Yeah, it's the only one they have requested. Of course, so it's within our service area. It's the only one that they actually irrigate. So what they do in other jurisdictions, what they decide to do there, I won't necessarily know, but it's the only one that will impact us and our need to make a decision. And like Scott, I do expect that at some point that it will go away. And, just to reiterate a little bit, the Board of Education has a lot of allocation, and that's good for them, not necessarily so good for us. So and that's water and sewer allocation. So whenever the Downsville school, whenever they approached us and they said, hey, we need our allocation bill, we did the analysis and we said, you don't need to purchase allocation because for public authority accounts, your total allocation applies. So we couldn't stop them from purchasing them, but we strongly recommended that they didn't, and they were, as you can imagine, 100% on board, because it was 4,500 gallons, I believe, 4,000 or 4,500 gallons of allocation, water and sewer, that they were going to purchase. So, we continue to look at ways to, if you will, make existing sold allocation go further where we can. And, from a sewer capacity standpoint, this is the only way, by allowing irrigation meter or sewer deduct meter, that we can maintain that capacity in the system. So if everybody's okay, we'll bring a motion back. It'll be on the preliminary agenda next week, and then for vote on the 26th to move forward with the 2 irrigation meters for South Hagerstown High School.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is review of City Code, Chapter 142, loitering ordinance. Joey Piper.
While these guys are coming up, this is the start of attacking that list that Mayor and Council asked us to begin evaluating. This is an opportunity to bring first these 2 ordinances back, let those that are in charge of enforcing those ordinances explain them to you, and then open that up for the beginning of discussion as to if you'd like to see something different, if you have questions about enforcement, and how we could potentially change that to fit more of what you're looking to do within the community. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us here tonight. So just real quick, we're looking at Chapter 142, loitering, that was introduced in 1995 into the city code. So the definition of this covers 18 years or older, doesn't cover juveniles. And loitering, by definition, remaining idle in essentially one location, and shall include the concepts of spending time idly loafing or walking about aimlessly, and shall also include the colloquial expression hanging around. Public places include not only streets, alleys, and sidewalks, but those establishments generally open for the public convenience and use. So the unlawful part of loitering, just so we can make sure we understand what this means, it shall be unlawful for any person to loiter in a public place in such a manner as to create or cause to be created a danger of a breach of peace, create or cause to be created any disturbance or annoyance to the comfort and repose of any person, obstruct the free passage of pedestrians or vehicles, obstruct, molest, or interfere with any person lawfully in any public place, solicit or engage in any lewd, lascivious, or illegal act, including prostitution, making of unsolicited remarks of an offensive, disgusting, or insulting nature, or which are calculated to annoy or disturb the person to or in whose hearing they are made. It shall be, and I'm going to clarify one thing when we get to this point here. So under the next section, it shall be unlawful for any person or persons who are standing or loitering within 50 feet of a Class A, B, C, or D retail establishment which sells alcoholic beverages to obstruct free passage on or along the street or sidewalk, or to disobey a request by a police officer to move on. I want to clarify something there. This section should not be in the law. It was determined back when Judge Boyer was a city attorney that this would be unconstitutional, and it was deemed and looked that it just has never been removed. But we do not enforce this component of it because it was deemed to be unconstitutional. So that part does need to be amended out of this. The 50-foot distance mentioned in this section shall be measured in any distance from the center of the main entrance or any entrance used by the public or retail establishment. Nothing contained in this section is intended to prevent property owners, their tenants, or guests thereof from sitting on the front steps or standing on the sidewalk in front of their property, regardless of whether or not the property is within the 50-foot distance. So those 3 sections should just be removed from this ordinance. Enforcement. Whenever the presence of any person in a public place is causing any of the conditions enumerated in 142.2, or in this case 142.2.1, which will be removed, any police officer may order that person or persons to leave the place,
Any person who shall refuse to leave after being ordered to do so by a police officer shall be guilty of a violation of this chapter. And the penalties for this chapter covers $500 fine not to exceed 500 and/or an imprisonment of 90 days as the maximum. So that's the ordinance. So those of us been around for more than a minute. Remember back when this was brought up and we were trying to get the ordinance passed for the alcohol establishments because we had a lot more downtown and a lot of issues that went along with that. And then some things that come up, and it was deemed at that point by the city attorney and then also the attorney general of the state of Maryland that would be unconstitutional. So loitering and what people think of loitering is just simply the hanging out in one place and when you really shouldn't be there, shouldn't be doing anything. In order to enforce this loitering ordinance, they have to commit another crime. They have to commit a crime that's disorderly, blocking the free passage of others. They have to commit something that's other than just standing idly in one place. Because that, by 1988 ruling by the Attorney General of Maryland, deemed that to be unconstitutional. They have the right to be in a public place as a citizen of this country, to be on a public conveyance as long as you're not committing another kind of crime. There was a Supreme Court ruling back in 1971 that said that loitering laws are too vague and defy the First Amendment right to assemble. So when we get loitering complaints, and we do get those complaints, typically we will make the arrest if there's an arrest to be made on another statute other than loitering. And we reviewed our records before coming down here today, and there's been no loitering arrest done in the last 5 years. We only went back 5 years. Doesn't mean we've not made arrests for trespassing or state charges for disorderly conduct or those other things, but the loitering law of our ordinances we don't typically enforce because those other things are already in place that we wind up making the arrest on if we need to make an arrest. But because we have this ordinance and because it's still valuable, we think it's still valuable to keep us on the books and use, is that we do get voluntary compliance because of this ordinance. So in most cases, we show up for people that are loitering and just hanging around idly, and we ask them to move along because they're doing something, probably doing something they're not supposed to do. We just couldn't prove that they were doing some illegal act. And in most cases, they will move along. So there is still value in having the ordinance in place. It also allows for businesses throughout the city to post loitering signs in front of their businesses, which also has some kind of enforcement, preventative nature to it, which gives some value as well. So I just wanted to go over that real quick with you. That's where we are with this, and more than happy to listen and open a conversation up to you guys about anything you would like to see or hear about this.
This only applies to public spaces, not private spaces?
That's correct.
So if it's a private space, like you said, you would put a no ordering or do a no trespass, that could then be enforced on
That
private
would be a no
space.
trespass for a private place, yeah.
And the one thing we've done with a lot of the businesses that had up the no loitering signs for the past is ask them to change them to no trespassing.
Right.
So a lot of the shopping centers and everything over the last probably 10 years.
10 years.
When it comes up, we advise them and change to no trespassing.
Because trespassing laws there's been nothing deemed to be unconstitutional about those laws. But the loitering laws are just still vague by the Supreme Court rulings from 71.
And there's no component for an additional criminal act.
Right.
Trespass.
Yeah, the mere fact that you're on someone else's property and you're not supposed to be there and it's posted properly, that's enough for us to make an arrest on that charge.
So you recommend for businesses and residents to have no trespassing, if that's allowed? Or at least on the residential side, maybe not as.
We have advised residents to do that in the past that have problems with people congregating there or a common shortcut or footpath or something like that, or if they're having a specific.
Or vacant
problem.
structures that are trying to sell their property, but maybe someone's passed away and the property's sitting vacant. We've asked them to put no trespassing signs up onto those properties because they'll have people sitting on their front porches or they'll get into the backyard. And if they have those clearly posted, we can enforce those.
And I think this is a great discussion for the public to be aware of this ordinance and the recommendation to have no trespassing. But if, let's say, you know, it's a business or whatever, and there's people doing unlawful things, would you recommend them to call? What would you recommend them to do next steps? They got the sign up, they're still doing some things around the area. What do you recommend they do next?
There's no requirement to actually have the sign. It just eliminates the step of notification. So if the sign's posted, then that's all, people have been duly notified that they can't trespass. So they can ask them to leave, and if they fail to leave, then they should contact dispatch to send us.
Non-emergency number?
We prefer, if it's not an emergency, we would ask them to call the non-emergency number, but if, obviously, people know 911. If they call 911, it's still okay on those kind of calls, when people are actually there. If the people are just using that as a footpath through your property, and you're like, I keep having this happening, that's a non-emergency call. He wants to come out, maybe help you, give you some advice. That's where those no trespassing signs are good, because people, if we catch someone on the property, say, well, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to go here. People walk through here all the time. You don't see the signs, it says no trespassing property. And the law is on your side for that charge, because they've been duly notified, because there's a sign clearly posted that you can't be there. Think of vacant structures, the old light plant that we had. If you clearly post that, we catch people on that property, they can't say they didn't know they were supposed to be there. Signs are up, clearly posted, they're not supposed to be on that. You do not enter in trespassing on a fence, and they climb over the fence, that there's no excuse for that. They can't have a legal excuse for that. They can't, oh, I didn't know. You know, people use this all the time. But generally, residential, everyday residents don't really put signs up on their property unless they're having some kind of an issue that's ongoing like that. Businesses, you know, again, I don't think we want a city full of signs. I think that starts to look a little, I think if you're having issues, put the signs up, it helps. But if you're not having those issues, the signs don't really serve you that purpose, because we're going to show up if someone's trespassing, it's an on occasion kind of thing, and we catch you trespassing and say she's not supposed to be here, then we're going to give you an official notice in writing that you're no longer allowed on this property. If you're found back here again, you will be charged with a crime. And then we ask you to leave. As long as you never come back, there won't be any charge for you in those cases.
And I think that's important for everyone to know this, you know, because we get emails about neighborhood. You're CC on a lot of them, Captain, of the neighborhood disputes, and they'll have signs like, oh, my neighbor can't step on my yard, and, you know, what can the police do? I mean, we get those emails. I'm sure you hear the calls, but, you know, some people just assume that just because you have the sign, you know, there's enforcement immediately after, and that's not necessarily the case, but at least they can have a number to call, the non-emergency call, and go from there. But we get a lot of the, what to do with my neighbors, and
Well, the value of the business owners, when we issue a no trespassing notice to someone that's at a business, a convenience store, and they're causing trouble and they want us to come and do something about it, we ask them to issue a no trespassing notice to them. And we'll issue that for them in our presence, and we sign off that we were witnesses to that. And then if you, as a business owner, see that person come back, you've already got that note, you know who it is, because we've given you a copy of that form, you know who it is. You can go file those charges yourself if they're already gone by the time you get there. So if we show up and they're already gone, we're going to advise you to go down to the district court commissioner and file those charges for trespassing because you witnessed it, we didn't. And that way it doesn't stop the process. So you don't have to wait for an officer then to do an investigation to try to find out and prove that person was there. You, as the property owner or those in charge of that property, could file those charges yourself, which is what we do. And in Maryland, it's a lot easier than in other states. You have a district court commissioner that you can go and file those charges yourself, where in other states you have to have law enforcement do that work for you.
thank you for that.
And I'm sorry, I just have a quick question. I know that this was adopted in 1995, and I heard you mention earlier that for 142-2.1, it's unconstitutional, right? Does this language need to be removed from this ordinance? Is that what we're looking to do today?
We're looking at reviewing all the ordinances that apply to us, and we're going through those now. We started that process anyway, because there's certain things that just either doesn't happen anymore. We need to just clean them up a little bit. This is one of the ones we're going to need to clean up.
And we're doing that across all departments. It's going to be part of the charter review process also. Charter and city code are different. But there are some things like we don't have to worry about, where you tie your horse up anymore.
Right.
Which is still in city code. We have to go through and start cleaning those up. And that's, again, what we're starting to do now through this process.
And besides the removal of the alcohol section, is there anything else that your department would see?
Possibly,
clarification?
if you look at 142.2G, it talks about the remarks that are offensive or disgusting, insulting. That's an old ordinance as well, as that you can't. There's an ordinance, I think it's still in the books, that you can't use foul language in front of a woman. On the city street.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So I think that one might need to be reviewed. We'll have,
They haven't done that one.
we'll have legal look at that and see if that's just meets clean up that one part there. Parts of it's okay, but I think part of that might need to come out as well.
And Scott and Donna, for the process, for making changes to code, would that would require an official
Motion,
vote
yep,
and all the
official
things?
vote. Yep.
Okay, okay,
It's by ordinance.
It's by ordinance,
Two-part, be a Q action.
introduction and then an approval.
okay. So that's nice to know too, when we go forward with all
Just
these.
be like every other
Yeah.
ordinance that you do. Yep.
Got it.
So I think in this case, we'll
And,
wait to
and
have legal
take
review
time
to make sure that what we're bringing
Got it.
back is completely cleaned up in terms of the motion to clean this section up. I'm just giving you a heads up, that section needs to come out, that 142.2.1.
And definitely G as well.
G, parts of that I think will have to come out.
Right.
There's parts of that language just needs to be, I think, cleaned up.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that really fits anymore. I think that was carried over from another old ordinance.
Okay.
We need to cover that.
Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure, I hope the public can see that this shows a lot of character on both of your behalves to look through outdated ordinances and to take your time and actually see, hey, this is definitely no longer falls in line with what we are living with today. So
Yeah.
that says a lot about the two of you. Thank you so much.
Also,
Oh, go ahead.
with the violation and the penalty, I know if I remember, Captain Langston, you said that really isn't something from y'all, that's like a court thing, right? So that's something that court puts in there,
Right, that's.
like
well,
that's
and it-
logistics from.
We couldn't make that any higher.
Right.
That's
But
the
could you make it
limit.
any, like, you
The
couldn't
court
change it
would
at all
allow it.
because it's court,
Yeah,
correct?
we always put, for any kind of ordinance like that, you always put what the maximum can be, and then the courts decide what that.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, that was-
something that can't, like, I'm just want to make sure people, I didn't know if we could change it, even the verbiage,
we
so
can't put-
people aren't really looking at it like, I think for a lot of people, it's the $500 fine that they're like looking at, like, that's where you get the comment from a lot of people where they say, if they're homeless, how are they going to pay a fine?
And again,
But that's something that can't be changed, correct?
the courts, I know the judges, they're bound by not, if they know someone's indigent and doesn't have a job and doesn't have the ability to pay,
It's up to the
they
discretion
cannot,
of-
they cannot issue a fine to someone like that. It's against the ethics rules of a judiciary to do that. So they take that into account. So
Okay.
Indigency is taken into account by judges when they determine what penalties and punishments are. So that's where they can give you community service hours. They can do other things
Right, and I
that takes
think it's
place of that fine.
Good for people to even hear that part, because they just see that and they're just like,
That's the maximum you could get if you went to court. Doesn't mean you're going to get that. Now, if you're a repeat offender, you can habitually are doing these things, then yeah, they keep, you're going to have a ramped up, excess, the fines and the penalties are going to start getting a little bit more steep because you're not listening. It's like punishing your child at home. You tell them you can't do that. Next time you got to go sit in the corner. Next time you're getting something taken away from you. Just
Right.
increasing that discipline as you go along. Laws are built with maximum penalties put in place, so that's what you could get. But generally speaking, no one ever gets those maximums, especially on the first time. That judges are just like we were trying to do. You come in, did you learn your lesson, and they'll put you on probation your first time. Come back in the second time, you're not getting probation the second time. You're probation before judgment. You're not gonna get that.
not saying that this has to be done, but I know a lot of people have, they don't understand what they can do. So they just see all these stipulations of what they can't, what they can't do. But I know some of them have even voiced their opinion, like they don't know if they can even sit down. So, and I know that's, but just, if it could be written in there, I'm not saying that it has to, but just so people understand, like, oh, just like how it lists what you can't do, if it can even list what you can do, so they understand that.
There are some municipalities that are actually doing that in more of a public information, public PSA type of a way to do it, instead of putting it in the code.
Okay.
Because the code is really based upon what you can't do.
Right.
But
And it's so much
could-
of what you
we
can't
could
do,
look-
people are looking at it
Yeah.
like, what
we
can I
could
do?
go we could look at it and it says in here, no, Wes is back there and he'll probably cringe. But it is another way to do like a PSA to where what you know, you can't do this, but you can do these things.
And we do that when we go on these calls.
When you go on the
So when we're on
calls.
the calls, once where should I go? What can I do? We tell them, here's where your options are. So they're given that option.
Okay.
Once they voluntarily go on there, we
It can
do
be
tell
done
them
in,
they can do it.
yeah, and it can be done in a less legalese, it can be more done in a more communicative way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy to look at that.
So I don't advise getting rid of the loitering
No.
ordinance at all. I think it's still valuable. Because I think there's still value in that education component of that, if nothing else. And it gives the businesses, and it's still what people think. Loitering is, you know, you're in front of my business, why are you standing there? You've been here for 3 hours, you ain't doing anything. If that's all they're doing, they're not doing anything else, there wouldn't be any law they're violating. But if we show up, we say, can you just walk somewhere else? You're bothering the business here, and most of the time we get compliance from that. So there's still value there.
That's good. Agreed.
I think that one of the things that other jurisdictions do under item C 142-2 is they define what the pedestrian thoroughfare is. So some jurisdictions will say it's 2/3 of the width, or some people, you know, for me, it's the width of the pedestrian right of way. So all I'm saying is, I don't know if we define that, and I've heard the number thrown out, well, you got to keep a minimum of 3 feet or 4 feet. You know, now I think it's 5. So all I'm saying is it would be helpful if, especially given the differences of widths throughout the sidewalk system in downtown, it would be helpful if we said what that was. And for me, you know,
I think that's in one of the other ordinances for.
Well, I think it's-
Disturbing the blocking the free passage side. I think there's
Yeah.
something in there that covers that.
Essentially, that this can be clarified, has been, a public sidewalk, if you stop or block any portion thereof, you can be blocking or hindering free passage.
right.
Some like you say, a person has to be able to walk by you without stepping into the street.
Right.
I mean, that is open interpretation.
Right.
The easiest way is the sidewalk, much like a road, is meant for moving.
Right.
And
It
any
should be
blocking
curb
of-
to building.
Yes. So I mean, that'd be up to you guys to decide, you know.
I think engineering has a little bit of answers on some of that. They would know what those rules are for width of sidewalks and things. I think Jim would have to be brought in on that discussion. I think there's a minimum width for sidewalks by code rules and
Yeah,
stuff.
but
too.
those are minimum widths for what a sidewalk's to be.
But I think that's probably the minimum width that they view, because anything wider than that, if you're not, people, that's, I think minimum widths are designed for handicap issues, you know, people in wheelchairs, things like that. So whatever that width would be, that's probably where you're thinking about that 3 or 5 foot is because of
Those are
that.
design widths.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of enforcement
Right.
width.
But I think we need to have a starting point, what that
Yeah,
is. So
exactly.
what does that
Right.
width be? And so that's where I think engineering needs to be
Yeah.
brought in. And then obviously, you know, Jason and them from legal would have to be brought in on that as well to kind of determine what that would look like. I'm all for that. I'm okay with that, but I think other people need to be brought in to discuss what that looks like.
If the council doesn't have any other questions, could you just very briefly talk about the incident that happened today with the ATV?
Sure.
Where not only did you have humans, but the technology that was employed to catch
I'm going to
those
let
guys. I
Lieutenant Lewis
watched it.
come up. I'm going to have Lieutenant Lewis come up and talk about it.
Yeah.
He was
Since we
overseeing
have
that.
Julie here, that
that your case?
from the paper.
Not my case, but I was there today.
But no, I watched.
He oversees patrol,
I
and I
watched
wanted
it,
him to-
and it was fascinating. how this happened.
So it started off with a burglary this morning, a suspected burglary. They saw some kids pushing a four-wheeler down the street in the south end. Officers came, we actually put a drone up, but we couldn't find it anywhere. We were searching everywhere. Didn't get a call yet, and then a short time later, someone noticed that, their property had been broken into and the four-wheeler was stolen. So it wasn't much longer after that than one of the downtown guys on a bike's like, I see it, it's going through town. So right away, they called out the crime center to watch it. And so he pulled up all the cameras and right away, he's just tracking it and giving us the feeds. And we're just trying to get people in the area because obviously we're not going to chase a four-wheeler. We're especially not going to chase something like that in the downtown area. It's just too dangerous. So we called for a drone right away, threw a drone up, and then the crime center can watch the drone, call that out, plus the camera systems at the same
The
time.
crime center's in HPD headquarters
Yep.
up on the third floor?
Yep, on the third
We're
floor.
going to do I'll talk about that in a minute. So.
Right.
I was just about that.
Yeah, and honestly, they're super valuable to patrol, being able to watch cameras and pull things up, and especially in instances like this. It's stolen dirt bike, it's daytime. We have to be very cautious with citizens running around and high volumes of traffic. So essentially what you want to do, we typically try to wait for them to stop so we can move in and grab them and there's no chase or anything like that. And today, that's what we did. We used the drones and all of our camera systems to track them, got the bike, the two kids that were on it took off and fled, chased them in circles for a little bit. I didn't. I let the young guys do that kind of stuff. And then we caught them right there at Mulberry, like right there in the area of 17 North Mulberry Street. Both of them in the same spot. And unfortunately, they had also a handgun on them that was stolen, reported stolen in the city, too. Loaded, ready to go. So very good police work from the crime center, the officers, everybody. It all worked out really good, especially at that time of day.
But it was the three facets of it. It was the actual law enforcement officers, it was the watch center, and it was a drone program. All three.
Yes, sir.
Were able to-
And we're talking seconds, like he says, I see it.
Yep.
Crime center says, I got it. I'm tracking it. They say, let's throw a drone up. We had a drone up within, 2 minutes, and they were all over the place in the downtown doing circles and donuts. They were actually at one point just sitting in an alleyway doing donuts.
Youth or adult?
Both youth, but charged as adults because of the handgun. And there's also, they were charged with burglary and theft of the stuff for breaking into
But it's why it's important to report when something like this happens and you have something stolen or don't put it on Ring, don't put it on Facebook, report it to the police because we have the technology that we are able to, once it's identified, we are able to track it. And we have qualified staff that are trained pilots now to be able to fly those drones. We have qualified people in the watch center that can pull up 300 plus cameras.
700 plus cameras.
700 plus cameras. That shows back in my IT days. 700 plus cameras. But are able to do it, in this case, within a matter of hours. So that's why I wanted, I'm glad, when I saw Andy walk in, I wanted to make sure that, that went out there. And with Julie here, we could get that message out there is to report it. Don't social media it. If you want to do that, that's fine. But report it. And actually, where something can get done.
And no one was hurt.
No, ma'am. No one was hurt.
No one was hurt.
Nope.
So I know we tried to schedule a visit to the Arctics Center last Tuesday, and you guys couldn't make it. So we want to do that again. I talked to council at National Night Out, and we're going to try to do it on a Tuesday when you don't have executive session at 3:00, so we catch you guys before you go to.
Right.
But I think you're going to be even more impressed when you see the Arctic Center and what they can do, the capabilities. The systems for the camera system we have now is even more intuitive. They don't have to try to figure out what camera they want to go to next. They literally can just start clicking and it takes them to the next one. There's things on the screen. They know that they went that way. They click an arrow and it takes them right to the next camera, takes them right to the next camera. So that real-time tracking is instantaneous. And that's why it's so valuable when the men and women that are working part-time in that Arctic Center is they're basically other investigators. They become virtual investigators for the guys on the street and gives them so much valuable intelligence real time on a lot of different cases. And they're picking up cases upstairs, and even if they're not asked to be involved, they're jumping on stuff when they hear a call come out. And the guys on the street just love every bit of what that's all about. And I'm super proud of the guys came to us with that idea, and we've been putting that together. And very shortly, they're going to be flying drones themselves. We've got the drone in the box that we got a grant approved. We're
When
going to
it
be
was
bringing it
approved
to
at
you.
this state, yeah,
We're going to be bringing it to you
approved at
guys here to receive that grant and to allow us to purchase those drones here in the next couple of weeks. So those will be 2 drones that'll be mounted, hopefully here on City Hall, and they can be flown and they come right back. They land here and they stay here the whole time. They go into a box, they recharge themselves, and they can fly anywhere in the city. And they literally will fly on calls for service. They won't just be showing up to help on these. They'll do that too, but they'll be answering calls with drones that would take the place of officers not having to go on non-essential calls, which is what they're doing. And I think the last time we looked at it, they've taken 45% of the calls for service in the last reading that we had. We set a goal of 35% and they've hit 45%. So we're really freeing up the men and women on the street to really handle those calls that they need to go handle, and not the non-essential calls that we can have someone else handle virtually. And it's been extremely valuable. And I think you guys are going to be really impressed. The state of Maryland, staff from the state of Maryland that work through another program that we're with are deeply impressed with it. And when you guys come to see it, they want to be there as well. And they've been touting our Arctic Center and our technology around the state, promoting us and promoting Hagerstown as being the go-to place for technology, as the model of what you need to do and how we can use technology to police in a much more efficient manner. And
it's not a matter of, we have drones that we just fly around 24 hours a day spying on people. Drones are deployed when there is an actual reason for them to be deployed. That's been one of the buzz things we've heard, that you've seen in the news and the media lately, that it's a big brother kind of thing. That's not how we operate. We operate on a response basis where there is an actual need to respond, and that's when we activate the drones, and this is what happens.
And that's why we bought so many drones. So we'd have drones on the street available every day, all day.
Right.
We didn't buy just 2 or 3. That's why we have upwards of 20 drones and all the 20 plus operators that we have, so that no matter what time of day or what day of the week, we got a drone operator working with a drone available on the street. So that was a big, huge investment that I'm really proud of this council approving back when we got that. And, we had some naysayers in our own community, law enforcement community, saying, you guys that's too much. You can't afford that. And I'm like, watch us, and it's proven invaluable. And then just the city camera system has been just a huge, huge benefit. The amount of crime that we solve just with those cameras is just phenomenal. And we're talking about the low level crime, not even the big stuff, the stuff that, is important to you as the person that had the crime happen to you. But those crimes are being solved all the time. And our closure rate on those things is unmatched. I can tell you it's unmatched by any other jurisdiction anywhere with how we do business. So I'm really proud of how the guys come together and brought these ideas forward, and they put this stuff together, and I get to take credit for it being the guys at the top, but they did all the work and they promote the ideas. So kudos to the guys and men and women that have brought this stuff forward to me, so we can get it in place. We got some new stuff we're looking at that we'll be bringing your way if we can get some grants that we met about today. I think you guys will be real impressed with as well if we can get those to you guys here in the next couple weeks to talk about. But yeah, I think you'll be real happy with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think we're the prototype. Thanks, Captain.
Next up is review of City Code Chapter 185, nuisance abatement ordinance. Amanda Gregg and Paul Falk.
Well, it's hard to follow the police and all their fancy technology. We're
I don't think you're that impressed.
paper and pen
Hey,
here,
we're
so.
getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting
Yeah,
there.
there's some things, but yeah, they're expensive. All right, so, tonight we're going to talk about nuisance abatement ordinances here. This was a code that was adopted by the mayor and council in 2001 and has been amended twice since that time period there. In 2010 was his first amendment, where we kind of escalated the timeline to comply with different codes with nuisance abatement if they were violated in the same calendar year. And then in 2018, we expanded the definition of nuisance so that it kind of incorporated more things. So what is a nuisance? That's defined by the mayor and council. And for this particular ordinance, it relates to uncontrolled weeds, grass, other vegetation, and then trash, debris, weeds cutting, and other similar materials. And then, like I said, we expanded it to include uncontrolled vines, overgrown shrubs, overgrown trees on premise or a public right-of-way, scattering of leaves over a public right-of-way. So that's specifically what it is, we generally refer to as the weed, trash, and debris ordinance. So what is the process with a nuisance abatement? So basically, if we receive a call about high weeds at a property or junk on a property, an inspector will respond to determine, does it qualify for a nuisance or is it as a notice? They'll make that discretionary call. And then from there, that they will post a notice at the property. Sometimes it could be a vacant lot, so then they're posting it on just like, like those snipe sign things that you kind of see. It's just something that has to be posted at the property. Then we mail a copy of the notice as well to the, registered owner by the state of Maryland. And we'll give them either 7, 5, or 1 days to comply, and I'll go through that here in a second. But what the inspector will do is they'll also take photos at that time. They'll take photos of the conditions of the property, showing the nuisance conditions, whether or not it's the high weeds or junk on the property. With the timelines to comply, if it's a weed notice violation and maybe some junk is on the property, they'll get 7 days for if it's start of a calendar year. So they'll get 7 days to comply. If it's a second time that we've had to go to the property in the same calendar year, then we reduce that down to 5 days. And if it's the third time or subsequent violation at the property in the same calendar year, it's reduced to 1 day. All those timelines get reset on the next new calendar year, and then we'll go down again. So if it's their first in the following year, then it'll be 7 days and so on. If the property only had trash on the property, like if they only had trash, debris, rubbish, that type of stuff, then we could do a 5-day notice. We don't have to do 7. 7 is only for weeds to start out. It is a 5-day for just trash or debris on a property. Now, let's say if it's a set out, which is when materials are set out on the curb or the sidewalk for some for an eviction. We will post those as a 1-day nuisance abatement every single time they're on the sidewalks, because that is a threat to public health, safety, and welfare. So the reason being for that is because, as the chief just mentioned, with loitering, if you have to walk into the street, same concept. You got to walk into the street to kind of get around this stuff, or you got to navigate over the sidewalk for those things, that they will be reduced down to 1 day to comply. I know there's comments a lot of times that, well, the court says I have to leave it out on the sidewalk for 24 hours. So then that means that you all can't tell me it has to be removed. Now, at the time that the court told you was 24 hours, if we show up an hour later after it was sat on the sidewalk and gave you 24 hours, then technically it's 25 from the time that the court said before the city will step in and do the abatement. So we are giving all the appropriate time. It's not 24 on top of what the court said. It can be concurrent. So after we give a notice for whether or not that's the weeds, trash, debris, whatever the items are, that if it's qualified as a nuisance, that the owner has that timeline to comply. If they fail to comply with the notice, then the city will step in and abate those items off the property, meaning that we will either mow the lawn, we'll remove the trash, debris, whatever the items are. Public Works is our primary contractor to do all of that work. If it's outside the scope that they can do, or in the allotted time they have in a day, the council has approved contracts with a third-party vendor that we use if it's outside their scope of work. Sometimes those are very large projects. You'd be surprised on how many places look like a jungle when we show up, but sometimes we have to do it that way. The best thing about it is that Public Works and our third-party contractor, if they are called to do an abatement on a property, they take photos of everything before they start. So it's taken right at the time that they show up at the property. They will take photos before they start the work, and they'll take photos right after the work is completed. Those are all date and time stamped. So they will clearly say that when we get questions about, well, how do we remove those items off the property? Well, no, we have Public Works, or the third-party contractors has everything date and time stamped and shows that those items were there when they showed up on the site. Once the work has been completed at the property, then our department will then issue a bill for the services performed and there are some that's for the cost incurred. So whether or not that is the time of the employees that were at the property or the removal of the item. Sometimes it's larger items, or it might be tires, and to take that to landfill, that actually costs the city extra money than just taking away just some trash. So there's always those costs associated with it, plus an admin fee of $100 and a technology fee of $20. So that's on every bill. If a bill goes unpaid, so basically we give them 30 days to pay. If it goes unpaid, we send them a second notice. If they fail to pay the second notice, then we will either send it to collections or it will go as a lien against the property. It just depends on the city policy on how we do collections versus liens. That if it's I forgot to include this, was when I was preparing for this tonight in the memo there, that if it's a third offense in the year, in the same calendar year, we will start fining them. It's a $500 fine for that as well. We generally don't get to those fine amounts. Generally, the fees are usually makes people take corrections. With the statistics I provided, basically back to 2020 there, and you can kind of see the numbers. That basically when we post abatement notices, whenever we post one, it's usually 1 out of 3 that we end up abating, 2 out of the 3 that the owner usually complies. And then you can see just the average cost per year for those abatements. So it's generally right around $150, or I'm sorry, $250 per abatement that we do at a site. So that's just basically the overview of the ordinance. It works fairly well for us to eliminate these types of conditions. And if you have any questions, I'm myself and
And I would just say in review, as you review these ordinances and the ones that you've requested be brought forth to you, if after you look at this, we're not asking you to do it tonight, that as you look at this and you see that either, there's too much time being given, there's not enough time being given, fine's too much, fine's not enough, let us know. And then that again, we can come back and we can amend the ordinance through the normal process and get it to where you feel you're most comfortable with.
So a couple of comments. The first is, I think it would be helpful for me and maybe the average citizen to understand on the chart if there were an additional column labeled reported. I only say that because, part of the complaint you get is we report things and nothing happens. I have to imagine that the 1,500 notices that you did in 2020, you definitely received less reports than what you went out and did.
Yes.
So I just think that that's important to note. And then the second is average time, because, I explained this to some residents, in some of the emails I convey is, I realize that the ordinance reads a way and everybody thinks the 7 days is 7 days or the 14 days is the 14 days, et cetera, and it just doesn't work that way. Logistically, practically, it just doesn't. And so I think that it would be good for me to understand, you don't have to go back 5 years, but what your average turnover is on the average.
And what time frame do you want us to use from the time that was reported to
Well, the time
when
of
it was
inspection to the
complied?
time of abatement, I think is important.
From inspection to abatement.
Because we hear people all the time, well, been complaining for 6 months, or, so I think to understand time of inspection to time of abatement on average is good.
I think it's important to tell them a little bit about, I think, and we talked amongst on another issue, but I think it's important to understand multi-violators, that you can go back after posting something and the inspector goes back and it's taken
Right.
care of, and then next week
It's something else.
or 2 weeks later, it happens again, and, natural growth, those kinds of
Right.
things.
Like what Amanda was saying, sometimes we get those reports of that, well, they haven't mowed their lawn all year long.
Yeah.
Well, every time we go by, it's always mowed. So we're like, what do they mean they haven't mowed it? Well, it turns out that neighbor that was reporting that to our office had been the one mowing that yard, and they were frustrated because they've been
Oh, yeah.
mowing it all year long. But we didn't know that that was occurring because we drive by and it's mowed. You get those types of concerns being reported to us that we have a hard time kind of doing it. And then you get those where, yes, it hasn't been mowed. Well, it was high weeds. We mowed the lawn. It grew back. We mowed it again. And then the report sometimes the elected body is, well, they haven't mowed at all. Well, that's true, they didn't, but the city stepped in and mowed several times during the process there. It was just that the owners did not mow during that time period. So I can get those numbers for those. Reported might be a little challenge because, it's a simple database that is just a call in and it's about high weeds. It might be a little difficult to get that exact reported number. I can get you an overall reported concerns to the city, but sometimes it might not be related to just the nuisance abatement. It may be someone complaining about an untagged vehicle or someone doing work without permits at a property or something like that. We don't have it disseminated.
And just
down
because
that
it's
level.
reported doesn't mean you give
Correct.
a notice, because it might not be relevant at the time.
Yeah.
Or it could be
Yes.
fixed by the time you come out. So.
Correct.
Correct.
The other thing is, under the prohibited conditions, and I think this is probably the most, I don't want to say confusing, but subjective part is in 185, it refers to weeds, trash, debris, rubbish, garbage, or similar materials. And I am sure, absolutely sure, right now you could go to my house and find something in my front yard, in front of my house, in the backyard. Somebody would definitely declare if it's under one of those, terms. But, I could have a stack of 2x4s, in my backyard for 15 years, because I plan on using them at some point, right? But that isn't debris or trash or rubbish. It's 2x4s that I'd like to use.
I will
All
say.
right, I'll stop reporting, Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is,
It's
like,
not
there-
to you, but
there-
you're saying maybe somebody else is saying it's a problem.
All I'm saying, materials and rubbish, to me, are nebulous terms. Garbage is garbage. I look at that section of the code and I go, define rubbish and materials, even debris. I mean, I probably have 7 cinder blocks, right, in my yard that I use for various things from time to time. Like but you see what I'm saying? That's somebody could say that's debris.
Right,
it's
and
just not.
and that's always where it's at the inspector to evaluate each thing there. We do have a term for unused construction materials. It is defined in the code. It's through the property maintenance code, as well as rubbish, trash, and debris. All of those are defined to give guidance for everything. It's not in this particular nuisance abatement ordinance. It's one of those kind of like works with in conjunction with another ordinance, but those things are all defined. It's only a handful of times we've ever done construction material, and those were, from my recollection, were when you had just stacks and stacks of shingles that were in the front yard that were just basically killing the grass. There was no intention to use it. It had been sent out there for years. So there is a certain timeline. I believe it's 90 days, but don't quote me on that. I can't recall offhand.
One man's trash is another man's
Right.
treasure.
You are correct.
But it's important that it's consistent. When it comes to discretion, I understand there's discretion with the code officers, but there should be consistency.
There is, and when there is a concern or something, that it's usually a discussion that we'll have, that would be like, do we feel this falls into this category or not? We're not just arbitrarily
You're not-
just
that's what I
going
was
out
getting
with
Well, I
it,
think
you know?
that you also have to, the public has to also understand that there's an extent to which you realistically want to push that envelope.
Right.
Because there are definitely people out there that will say, you're calling it this. I'd love to see you defend that in court.
Right. So that's a great example. Let's say with high weeds, that we get a quote about, or a call about high weeds. We'll go out and post the abatement. Let's say the homeowner did the work because it wouldn't have been the city. We have a certain standard that they have to meet. The homeowner did the work and mowed it, but they didn't trim around the house or didn't trim around the shed. At that point, we were not going to abate something because they did majority of the work. They mowed the lawn. Did they need to probably trim as what we
Unless the
probably
weeds
want
are
to see?
noxious.
Unless the weeds are noxious, which there are 5 or 6
Right,
that are
they're very
identified as
specific
noxious in
ones.
the state of Maryland. But that, you know, that you have to use that discretionary point at it to kind of see if you'll do it. And sometimes that just turns into a conversation with the homeowner if we're able to make contact with that homeowner.
That's all I have.
I have some comments. So this discussion about this ordinance is right on time. We get emails a lot about people complaining about the neighbors' weeds, et cetera. So in general, what should a public do if they are to report high weed situation or trash on someone's yard?
So as it is with the discretionary stuff, it all depends on really the volume of it. You know, as Councilman Roushar kind of alluded to, it's all what we kind of want to say can hold up in court. You know, if someone has a loose bag of chips that were just sitting on a property, does that equate to a level of a nuisance? I would think this body would probably say, no, we didn't want you to do that as a nuisance. If it was, you know, 10 trash bags that were thrown all across the yard, yeah, that's probably to a level of a nuisance. So it's sometimes on those discretionary levels that you kind of have to do it. Everything can be reported to the office. And so let's say that it was a few items. So it was maybe littered beer cans on a yard. That's a very common call that we would get. That might not be a nuisance, so we would give them a sanitation notice telling them, hey, you have, you know, trash, garbage, debris on your property, remove those items. We would give them 7 days to comply again. If they fail to comply with that particular one, the inspector then could choose to go the nuisance abatement route, then meaning that, okay, well, then if they don't do it after these next 7 days, then we're just going to step in and do it. So they really kind of got 2 weeks off of that. So they kind of build a case. And then if we end up going to court, then you're kind of telling the judge, well, I gave them this notice, they failed to take action. I gave them another notice, they failed to take action. So now that's why we're here at this point. So we kind of escalate it as depending on the level. So it's always very difficult to kind of say the exact level to it. I know that some we've received recently, because I've been part of email groups on weeds in the sidewalk and concerned about weeds in the sidewalk. Yes, in the months of July and August, they pop up like crazy. Our yards might not grow, but they grow like crazy in the weeds in the sidewalk. So that where does it escalate to the level of a nuisance to do those? Honestly, for weeds in the sidewalk, majority of the time, because they're short little ones or maybe growing a little bit off of it, that's just going to be a weed notice. We're not going to abate those. We'll give them a chance at first to take care of it themselves. If they fail to respond, then we'll move forward with an abatement notice. Now, if we go out to a property and the weeds in the sidewalk are a foot tall, 2 feet, whatever the scenario may be, which they are, then that is just straightforward with an abatement notice, just because we're going to step in and go ahead and do the work.
And just as recent as yesterday, there was an email about weeds throughout the city. And I responded to the citizen, you know, CC'd Eric and asked for addresses because that's important too. But I was really thankful, hoping that Eric was still here. Was really appreciative of Eric's response to that email to further elaborate about the process, but also more importantly, to state that property owners has responsibility too, to keep the weeds down. And I know that's probably a myth. A lot of times it's that people assume the city just has ownership of all the grass here in the city, you know? So I was happy to see that he was able to communicate that to the citizen. And also, and thank you to your office for, as of today, going out to those addresses, once that citizen eventually gave some more information, issuing 15 citations. So the email came in yesterday, citations were issued the next day. So that just goes to show that, you know, your office is responding as quickly as possible, but also to give information to the citizen that this is how it works. So this ordinance discussion was right on time because we do get a lot of emails about that. And it's assumed that the city just rides around and tells, you know, everybody, I mean, we do have an ordinance, right? To make sure that people's weeds are down, but it's not our responsibility to cut everybody's grass. But if we do cut the grass, then you have to pay a fine for that. You have to pay for that. So thank you to your office for that.
No problem. And the one thing too with those is that, you know, we mention all the time, we are a railroad town and there's railroad property everywhere. So they only send crews through the areas as they see fit. It's not pretty much on how we ask for it. It is on how they see fit and their crews can come in and trim. So generally, when we have those and there's excessive issues, maybe on like, not so much in the area that was reported to us yesterday, but in some other areas, then we just go in and just clear those areas. But unfortunately, Supreme Court ruled several years ago, this is decades ago, that railroads are not held accountable to meet local ordinance requirements. So, yeah, so when it comes to those things, then sometimes when we abate railroad property, we're not sending them a bill. We are just doing it because that is our responsibility, is that's just maintaining some of those areas. So we work with them as much as we can on trying to trim up the times they do come into town. Usually it's about 3 times a year to trim. Or to mow, but if it gets excessive in areas, we just go ahead and do it and just eat those costs.
And one question, what about, what's the process for vacant properties?
Same as occupied.
And who,
We're coming back on that in, next month on vacant properties.
okay,
I guess for the abatements, I know maybe, yeah, that we can do all sorts of things to talk about
Yeah,
those.
all
That they
things
could be
vacant
abatements.
properties.
okay. I'll wait till later.
And then I had one quick question, Paul. So as far as the person who calls it in, there's not a protocol in place that says that they have to be notified that you have taken action. Is that correct?
Correct. The one thing that has worked well for the city of Hagerstown on a lot of stuff is that it's anonymous
Right.
to report. Other jurisdictions have it where, well, they want your name and phone number and an email address and collect all the information. A lot of times people then don't report the item. So we have seen that the reports come in more when they keep anonymous. So we do have a lot of those, or just really unique email addresses that they give us that are not obviously going to someone.
And once you start responding to an individual that reports, then that response out becomes public record.
So the only reason I asked that question is because I think with some members in the public, just in general, if they call something in, there's this like expectation that they should receive almost like a receipt saying that, you know what, I called something in and it's being handled or it's being taken care of. So that's the only reason I asked that question, is that there's no real protocol in place that says, once you call it in, you get a ticket number, we're working on your case. It's almost like you guys handle the situation on your own.
Right, and I mean, we could, since we're volunteering West for a lot of things, we can always put out a PSA for that type of stuff. People do have the ability to look it up online themselves.
Okay.
To view this stuff, so as long as they know how to do it, it doesn't
So that's
require
good
a
to know.
username or password. They can
Okay.
go in and look. The only challenge with our online system, based on our current software system, is it doesn't tell you if it's open or closed, basically to see if the
not in
city's
real
done
time?
something. Do what? I'm
It's
sorry.
not in real time?
No, it's not real time. It's when the inspector gets back in the office. Usually they'll put in, so it's either the same day or the next day that you'll see the stuff, but we could
does
put
show
out
when it's
information.
cited, though,
It
right?
does. It
So
shows when it's
So
cited.
say the neighbor posted, like, reported a
Right.
concern, and 3 days later, or a week later, whatever, they could see if any action was taken, right? It doesn't say completely all the details, but they could
Right.
see that an inspector had gone to the property, and if it was of importance of a notice, they could see it was done.
Right, and it will.
So they can self-check.
Right.
That's good to know.
Yes.
They can, but it's a very frustrating system to use online, because as we all know, we have a lot of north, south, east, and west, and we have streets, boulevards, avenues, all that type of stuff. You don't put that in. You only put the number and you put the address and you put the
Right.
street name. So it's a very complex. We have a manual that's there, right, for people to use so they can follow along with step by steps when you get right into it. But it is something that is cumbersome to use.
A little clunky. It'll get better.
Yeah. Newer software system, it'll be better, but this one, we got what we got.
I was near our favorite location where the garage was tore down in the alleyway. I say our because I see you there several weeks ago, and the grass was really high. I
Yes.
don't know, is it still high? Just want to put that out there.
Yes.
That's
And-
our location. Every time I would drive past, Paul
Yeah.
was in the alleyway
Yeah.
assessing the garage that is now down.
Yeah.
But now there's high weeds.
Right.
So I just want to throw it out there.
Be
And
careful
we-
what you ask.
Yeah, it's, we have on a regular mowing schedule with a contractor, but I don't know where they are.
That's
I will
our
find out.
spot.
Yeah, it is. And just as you mentioned on those ones there too, that if someone is calling in for the office, sometimes they feel that it's instant. And like we mentioned tonight was several timelines are given. We get a lot of calls in the office, well, I'm having a picnic tomorrow. Can you make the neighbor mow? Well, I'm like, we can certainly tell them to mow today, but when they mow, you should have called us a week ago. And for your knowledge on some things as well, when we do have, downtown events going on or certain areas like Porch Fest, when those things are going on, we usually go a month beforehand trying to get those areas cleaned up, mowed, all that type of a stuff, so that when people are visiting those areas, they don't see that type of nuisance items that are here. So it's usually trying to get it cleaned up before those events. Can't say it doesn't come up after we go through the area, but we try to do it a month beforehand.
Okay.
I do have a suggestion for, as we talk about ordinances and as I was preparing for this meeting and the nuisance ordinance, I don't know if this is on our list, but chapter 95, the excessive use of city services, I would like for us to come back and discuss that one.
Sure.
It's not necessarily related to the weeds and the trash, but it also pertains to just the drug activity and loitering and noise, et cetera. So I want us to take a look at that, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yep,
Absolutely.
we'll add it too.
Okay.
That's one of Paul's favorite ordinances, 95.
I just keep you here.
That's right.
Paul had hair before he, 95.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
City Administrator.
All right. Another one of those weekends where you can't find something to do, you ain't looking hard enough. Fifth and final movie of the summer on Friday, August 15th. It's the City Park Band Shell. Wicked will be playing, so I'm sure that's going to get quite a crowd there. Midweek Market tomorrow, 6 to 8 at University Plaza. Max Rosado and the 7th Street Band will be playing Latin and salsa music, so that should be a fun time. Encounter City Park also tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at City Park Band Shell. Crossway will be performing, Crossway will be performing. It's also August-Toberfest weekend, and the traditional Volks March will happen downtown on Saturday, starting at 8 at University Plaza. It's a 10K or a 6K trail, $4 to participate in the Volks March. And as usual on the weekends, Farmers Market at Hub City Brewery, Sunday 12 to 4, and Municipal Band Concert Series featuring Ryan Cheney as a clarinet soloist is Sunday, 8/17 from 7 to 8:30 at City Park Band Shell. And just a last shout out to my wife who's been watching, still in rehab up at Camp Hill, but progressing very well. Hopefully we will get her back here in a very short period of time, but I have been receiving her comments throughout the meeting, and I will not tell you what any of them are.
I'll ask her.
But no, I appreciate it. Love you, honey, and thanks for watching. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Anderson.
Nothing for me tonight, Mayor.
Councilman Flaherty.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Locomotive 202, we can continue that discussion and keep the Washington Historical Society here, because I share a lot of their Facebook posts and stuff like that. That's it.
Councilwoman Burnett.
Nothing tonight.
Councilman Alshire. Councilwoman Bell. Well, I'm gonna join you too. I have nothing as well. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Any discussion on any items tonight?
We did hook up with Mr. Stout after the meeting, so there'll be more discussions with them on the Historical Society.
Anyone else? Okay, we're adjourned.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker. I'm joined by Neighborhood Services Manager Paul Folk. Paul, a frequent flyer here on Council Wrap. And now we're starting to get into some of these ordinances, revisiting some of them, where they stand, the language in ordinances, sort of headed toward a charter review for the city of Hagerstown. And during the meeting this evening, you were able to talk to the council a little bit about Chapter 185, the nuisance abatement ordinance. A lot to that in terms of the wording, but when you break it down, it's really pretty simple. So let's start there with exactly what that means.
So the nuisance abatement ordinance is kind of nicknamed the weeds, trash, and debris ordinance. So basically, if someone has high weeds on a property, or if there's trash or debris and rubbish, those items are all subject to a nuisance classification and can be abated off the property by the city.
How big an issue is this in your mind in terms of the season, or, you know, during the course of the year? You provided some statistics. Maybe we can get into those a little bit before we're through here. But just in your mind, how big an issue is this? And what does it mean to those folks who are not violators? So why is this a problem?
Yeah, so percentage-wise, it's about a quarter of the work that the inspectors do, and we always talk about the growing season. That we always know that's a busy time for our department, because unfortunately, I would love to say that people mow their lawns all the time, but unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and so they need reminders to mow, and that's what our office does a lot to just remind people that there's the constant maintenance and upkeep of just keeping a pretty city, a beautiful city, just keeping those areas nice.
A lot of it is aesthetics, but then there is a safety component to that, and other facets to it in addition to just that. And I know that lots of times through your office, I've experienced it over the years, you're big on educating property owners about things and, you know, getting that word out in advance. So these are things that don't happen in the long run, these negative things that seem to transpire. So are there any efforts in place for that? Or are there efforts that have already taken place? And I guess I'm asking just from the standpoint of anybody who is watching this, is there someplace I can go and kind of brush up on this a little bit? So where would you point them at this point in time?
So a lot of stuff there. Alrighty. So first you mentioned about the safety component. Sometimes there could be the safety component with it, and with nuisance abatements, the safety component can kick in when there's trash and debris that's blocking a sidewalk to prohibit someone from safely, traversing down the sidewalk through the public sidewalk there. It can also be sometimes where there's a significant amount of sanitation items that are causing foul smells in the community. So we can address those things through those means for safety aspect of stuff. As far as education goes, we haven't done a huge education effort as far as mass social media for things. A lot of times if we go into a community and there's perhaps maybe say the lack of the particular aesthetic maintenance, then we will blanket the neighborhood with either flyers or do direct mailers to people, just trying to educate them with, here's the requirements, giving people maybe a week to comply with that particular requirement before notices are being issued. Because, sometimes you have new people into a community, they might not understand that the standards are the same that are in this town that were in their previous town that they lived in, or even there's different standards between City of Hagerstown and Washington County. So that they're just different standards that they might be unaware of. So trying to educate as best as possible is a lot of our goal. But doing a more social media presence is something that honestly I haven't thought of.
Okay, well, maybe we can work on that together.
Right.
It's always fun when we get together on projects. We always try to find a way to lighten it a little bit in terms of the message, but certainly this is something that is serious, especially when you can get to the point where someone could be fined and with the abatements having to pay for those. And again, that causes a burden on city services themselves too, which doesn't make us very efficient overall. And we want to certainly get past all of that. One of the things that you mentioned was sidewalks. And I know during the meeting, a little discussion about sidewalk responsibility. Can you sort of clear that up a little bit, because for me, I know a few years ago, sidewalks pretty much once again became the responsibility of the city when it came to maintenance. But how is that viewed when it comes to weeds and things of that nature?
Right. So that's a very good point, because when the code did change and made it where the city took some ownership of the replacement of sidewalks versus the homeowner, our concern always was where would people land on the general maintenance and upkeep of the weeds or snow on sidewalks. So although we might have a 90+ degree day today, I'm always thinking about snow and when it comes to sidewalks. But that, when you have some sort of weed growth in a sidewalk, or if there's trash, debris that's left on the sidewalk, as the abutting property owner, you are responsible for maintaining those areas in compliance with the local ordinances. And the same thing goes for the snow, that you're to shovel your sidewalk during the winter season if we get a winter event. The one thing that we always mention too is about being a good neighbor, as we mentioned with some of our series there, and trying to tag in what we just mentioned, that, at times there are weeds that grow up between the curb and the street. And that's always one of those areas of who's the responsible party of those. And so the city does its best to get out to try to maintain those areas and through street sweeping, but we can't always maintain all of those areas. So it's part of being just a good neighbor and being a good steward here with the city and being a partnership of just taking care of those areas as well, that is between the curb and the street.
And I know the city doesn't necessarily want to be the quote unquote bad guy when it comes to stuff like this, because again, it's very time consuming on city services themselves. And I think when we had the discussion earlier, you did with mayor and council, as it relates to the subjectivity of some of these situations that the inspectors might encounter, what type of direction do you give them, and what type of discussions might take place between you and an inspector when they encounter something at a property?
Yeah, so, if it's a inspector that's on a season, so usually some that have a few years underneath their belt, they pretty much know where the standards kind of go. But if it's someone newer, a lot of times it's a lot of discussions. And one of the things is always just having photos. Like I mentioned before during the council meeting, that, when inspectors at a property, they're always taking the photos of what the violations are, and we can usually discuss them. Now with technology, with FaceTiming and everything else, generally they can get me on the call and we can discuss things at that point in time, rather than there's that delay like there used to be with coming back into the office or me coming out to a site to kind of give that final call on this stuff there. But we do have training that we have with photos that generally explains things on when does it cross the threshold from a notice to the level of being a nuisance in the community.
And on the topic of elapsed time, I think Councilmember Alshire brought it up and was interested in knowing, how much time on average it might take from the inspector arriving at the property to the actual abatement or the issue being cleared up perhaps by the property owner. Do you have any idea about that at all off the top of your head?
So off the top of the head, generally we get a call, we respond the next day or 2 days later. It's hard to say, just depending on scheduling. And then we'll give the 7 days to comply. Now, by policy, that a homeowner can ask for additional 5 days. So they could ask for that. That's the max that an inspector can give. And then after the timeline to comply has passed, the inspector will go out the next day. So let's say that their deadline was today, that they would go out tomorrow to do the inspection to see if they complied. If the owner failed to comply with the notice, then we would send a work order for the abatement to be performed. And generally that takes place the next day or 2 days later, depending on contractor availability. So generally speaking, we say 7 days to comply, but when you add in all the extra time, it could be 2 weeks to 3 weeks to comply.
Yeah, well, it's similar, very similar to vacant properties and responding to something and doing what you can, and then ultimately it ends up in somebody else's hands. So that process just seemingly takes much longer than most people ever think that it should, because like, man, I called that in and the response time has not been what I hoped it would be. But still, you're going through all of the paces to the extent that you can within your department this is just kind of how it plays out, unfortunately.
You're right, and it's one of those things that we have to always remember that is someone violating an ordinance, so if we escalate it to the point of going to court, we have to build
Yep.
a court case. We can't just immediately just mow a property. We have to show reason.
Yeah, and I think when I look at your statistics here and I look at 2025, knowing that that's basically about what, half of this year, I guess, to
Pretty
this
much.
point.
Yeah, just 3 months basically.
But the real concern is the average cost per city abatement at $374.55, which is more than any other of the previous 5 years coming into this one. So from a budgetary standpoint, that's not a good thing.
No, those are the averages. Sometimes we have more that are a little bit more expensive and some that are less. Generally speaking, we do generally for a whole year average out to $250 just because you'll have some that aren't involving mowing during the outside the growing season. So it kind of brings down that average.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you are correct that, and it's unfortunate because a lot of times when we show up to the properties, granted, we're patrolling the city of Hagerstown to try to identify nuisances before we get a call, but sometimes it is just based on response or when you get down that particular street and you're actually able to observe something. The weeds are already 2-3 feet tall, so it takes a considerable amount of time just to mow the grass, and you get the extra labor cost on there because by our ordinance there you can't allow the grass to lay on the property, so it's always removing all of the cut grass as well.
And when it comes to nuisance, how would one report and to whom would one report if there is an issue?
So there's several avenues to report. There's obviously the website to report a concern. They can report a condition about a property that will get to the selected inspector for that particular area. And then also they can always call the office, which is extension 103 with the city.
Okay.
We always recommend always either using those two avenues just because if you're trying to always reach out to an inspector, they may not be in that particular day or something. So we want to be able to have that so if someone needs reassigned, then that can be done to them. And I apologize, I forgot the second part of that question.
No, that's okay.
All right.
No, I was just saying to whom
Oh,
the report,
right.
but clearly
Yeah.
to the department.
Correct.
So it's not to a specific inspector or anyone like that.
Right.
It would be to the department, and then it would be handled from there, parsed out from there. Just one final question as it relates to Chapter 185, originally adopted back in 2001. There were some upgrades, so to speak, in 2010, amendments again in 2018. Do you see anything changing in the near future? Did you glean anything from what you heard in the meeting tonight? Do you have any idea of a sense of direction from here, or if there's anything that needs to be done at this point?
I think the council would like to see maybe a little bit more information on our statistics that we might be able to put forth. Maybe they can make some decisions off of that. I know that sometimes concerns are vacant properties, and that may be related in a different avenue. So
Okay.
we could probably see on that one. And something I forgot to mention there, just that we mentioned at the end of the council meeting, was that if you reported something and you wanted to track the progress of that particular item, unfortunately, we don't always have the capabilities to respond to anyone that reports it because we do like to keep them anonymous to the office. So you can always look online through the website to figure that out. It's on online services. You go to HagerstownMD.org, go to online services, and you can see right in that area to look things up for how to track that particular one. It may be cumbersome to use as it is right now, but there is a way to actually track to see, did we actually respond to your reported concern and issue a notice to it. It would give it the timeline dates, and it would also let the person know that what we observed on it. The one thing to note as well is that we can only observe things from the public right of way. So we cannot actually look on the property. So if it's a neighbor that is reporting something to the office and they're looking from their second floor window out and looking into the neighbor's yard and saying, well, they got, 18 tires behind there. Well, if there's a 6-foot high privacy fence, we can't see that. So that neighbor would need to invite us onto their property to be able to observe that so we could issue an appropriate notice.
Well, I've told people over the years, this guy is not a nuisance. And tonight he proved that he is a nuisance abatement specialist. That is indeed what he is. Neighborhood Services Manager Paul Folk. Thanks for your time, Paul.
Thanks, Buzz.
And thanks to all of you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Council Wrap. For now, that is a wrap.